She said it softly, like it was supposed to end the conversation. Please don't embarrass me tonight. Her voice wasn't worried. It was threatening. I looked at my sister across the restaurant table, perfectly styled hair, diamond earrings catching the candlelight, confidence dripping from every movement. She had practiced this moment, I could tell. Then she leaned closer and whispered the sentence she had been waiting to say all evening. Mark's dad is a federal judge. There it was. Not an introduction. Not information. A warning. The kind meant to remind me of my place. I nodded politely, as if I were impressed, as if the title meant something new to me. Across from us, Mark straightened his posture. He loved this part. Men like him always did. Borrowed power made them feel taller. His mother smiled tightly, already judging me, and his father sat quietly. Judge Reynolds. Dark suit, perfect tie, silver hair. The posture of a man used to silence following his words. He hadn't looked at me yet. That was deliberate. My sister cleared her throat loudly. Everyone, she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. This is my sister. She paused, just long enough. The disappointment. The word landed hard. Mark shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. His mother pretended not to hear. The judge remained still. I didn't flinch. I had learned years ago that reacting was a gift, and I wasn't giving her one. I smiled instead. Nice to meet you all, I said calmly. My sister watched my face closely, waiting for cracks, waiting for shame, waiting for me to shrink. I didn't. She frowned slightly, then recovered. You're still figuring things out. Right, she added loudly for the table to hear. Translation, she hasn't succeeded, I have. I took a slow sip of water. I suppose you could say that, I replied. The judge finally looked up. Not fully, just enough. Our eyes met for half a second, and something changed. It was subtle, but real. His expression didn't collapse. His mouth didn't open, but his eyes sharpened, like a memory had been forced awake. He looked away quickly. Too quickly. My sister missed it. She was too busy enjoying herself. So, she continued, waving her hand casually, Mark is clerking for his father right now. Federal court, very competitive. She waited. I said nothing. Mark jumped in. It's intense, but rewarding. Being around that level of authority every day. He glanced at his father with pride. Judge Reynolds nodded once, but his hand tightened slightly around his glass. I noticed. People trained to read rooms always do. The waiter arrived to pour wine. Red. The judge lifted his glass, then paused. He looked at me again, this time longer. His jaw tightened. Recognition didn't hit like lightning. It crept, slow, unwelcome, impossible to ignore. My sister laughed. Dad, you're awfully quiet. He cleared his throat, just observing. His voice was steady, but his eyes weren't. I set my glass down. Judge Reynolds, I said politely. The table went silent. My sister blinked. You don't need to call him that. I ignored her. Judge Reynolds, I repeated, meeting his gaze fully now. His breath stopped for just a moment. I saw it. Saw the instant he knew this wasn't coincidence. Good evening, he replied carefully. His voice carried authority, but underneath it, something else. Caution. I smiled. The kind of smile that says I remember too. My sister laughed nervously. She's being formal. She does that sometimes. The judge didn't look at her. His attention was locked on me. Have we met? He asked. A dangerous question. One my sister didn't realize could destroy her entire evening. I tilted my head slightly. Not like this, I said. Mark frowned. What does that mean? Before I could answer, my sister cut in sharply. She's exaggerating. She tends to do that. Her hand trembled slightly as she lifted her wine glass. The judge watched her hand, then looked back at me. You work in law, he asked. I smiled again. Something like that. His fingers tightened around the stem of his glass. My sister's smile faltered. I told you, she snapped quietly. Don't embarrass me. I leaned closer to her. Relax, I whispered. I haven't said anything yet. Yet. The judge shifted in his chair. Memories don't ask permission. They arrive when they want. And I could see it now, the moment he placed me. The courtroom, the sealed file, the testimony no one was supposed to hear. His wine glass slipped slightly in his hand. He corrected it quickly. Too late. My sister noticed. Dad, she asked, confused. He didn't answer. He stood, slowly. The movement commanded attention without effort. I believe, he said carefully, extending his hand toward me. We've met before. The restaurant felt suddenly too quiet. I stood as well, took his hand. Firm. Professional. Deliberate. Your Honor, I said clearly. Good to see you again. The sound that followed wasn't loud, but it was unforgettable. Glass shattering. Red wine spreading across white linen. My sister stared at the broken stem in her shaking hand. Her face drained of color. What? She whispered. The judge didn't look at her. He didn't look at anyone. His eyes stayed on mine. And for the first time that evening, he looked afraid. The restaurant didn't return to normal after the glass shattered. People pretended not to stare. Waiters slowed their steps. Conversations nearby dropped into whispers. My sister kept looking at her hand like it had betrayed her. I'm so sorry, she murmured automatically, already reaching for napkins, her voice thin and confused. I don't know what happened. Judge Reynolds didn't move. He was still standing, still holding my hand, and still not letting go. Mark shifted in his seat. Dad. The judge released my hand slowly, like he was afraid a sudden movement might expose something he couldn't put back. Sit, he said quietly. Not a suggestion. Mark obeyed instantly. So did my sister. Authority didn't come from volume. It came from history. The judge sat back down, adjusting his cuffs with deliberate calm. Anyone else would have thought he was composed. I knew better. His breathing was controlled, too controlled, like a man holding something in. I apologize for the interruption, he said to the table, eyes forward now, voice neutral. An old memory. My sister laughed nervously. Oh, well, that happens. Right, funny how people resemble others. She glanced at me sharply. I met her eyes. She looked away first. The waiter returned with fresh wine glasses, hands shaking slightly. He avoided eye contact with the judge. I'll bring another bottle, he stammered. No, Judge Reynolds said. Firm. The waiter froze. No alcohol, the judge continued. Not tonight. My sister's head snapped up. Dad. He raised one finger. She stopped. That finger had stopped courtrooms. Mark leaned toward her and whispered, What's going on? She shook her head, panic starting to show through the polish. Nothing was going according to her script anymore. Judge Reynolds finally turned to me again. You look well, he said carefully. A strange thing to say. I smiled faintly. I survived. The word hung between us. Heavy. Loaded. Mark frowned. Survived what? My sister shot him a warning look. Too late. The judge's jaw tightened. Some experiences don't leave visible scars. I nodded, but they leave records. Silence. My sister laughed again, louder this time. Okay, this is getting weird. What records? I didn't answer. Neither did the judge. That terrified her more than any explanation could have. She leaned toward me, her voice sharp but shaking. What did you do? I turned to her slowly. I told you, I said calmly. I don't talk about work at family dinners. Mark's face hardened. If you're implying something about my father. Judge Reynolds cut him off instantly. Mark, stop. The command was cold. Mark shut his mouth. The judge's eyes never left me. You were younger, he said quietly, than I expected. I tilted my head. So were you. His lips pressed into a thin line. My sister's hands clenched in her lap. Dad, you're scaring me. For the first time that evening, he looked at her. Really looked. Not as his daughter. Not as the bride-to-be. But as a variable he hadn't accounted for. This doesn't concern you, he said. Her eyes widened. I'm your daughter. And she, he replied without looking away from me, was a witness. The word hit like a gunshot. Witness. Mark stood abruptly. Witness to what? I stayed seated. Power didn't need to stand. My sister's voice dropped to a whisper. Dad, what is he talking about? The judge closed his eyes briefly. Just once. As if reopening a door he had spent years locking. There was a case, he said slowly. Sealed. Federal. Buried so deep it was never meant to surface again. My sister shook her head. No, you're exaggerating. I leaned back slightly. He's not. She looked at me like she didn't recognize me. Who are you? She demanded. I held her gaze. The reason some men don't sleep well, I said softly. Mark's face went pale. The judge's voice dropped. You testified. Yes. His hands tightened on the table. You disappeared. I was relocated. My sister's breath hitched. Relocated where? The judge didn't answer. Because he knew that question came with federal consequences. Mark laughed weakly. This is insane. I finally stood. Slowly. Every movement intentional. I didn't disappear, I said. I was erased. The judge looked up at me. His eyes weren't afraid now. They were calculating. What do you want? He asked. My sister's knees were shaking visibly. I want nothing, I replied. I didn't come here for you. She swallowed hard. Then why are you here? She whispered. I looked at her. Really looked. I came for dinner, I said. You invited me. Her face cracked. The judge pushed his chair back slightly. This dinner is over. No, I said gently. It's just getting honest. People were openly watching now. Phones hovered discreetly. The judge noticed. He stood again. We need privacy. I smiled. You lost that years ago. His eyes darkened. Be careful, he warned. I leaned closer, lowering my voice so only he could hear. That's why I lived. He stiffened. My sister grabbed Mark's arm. Take me home. Mark didn't move. He was staring at me like I was something dangerous. You're not who you said you were, he said. I smiled slightly. Neither is your father. The judge exhaled slowly. This isn't over, he said. I nodded. It never was. As I reached for my coat, my sister's voice broke. Why didn't you tell me? I paused. Because that question actually mattered. Because you didn't want the truth. I said quietly. You wanted superiority. She collapsed back into her chair. The judge watched me walk away. He didn't follow. He couldn't. Because for the first time in decades, someone who knew everything was no longer under his control. And outside in the cold night air, my phone buzzed. One message. Unknown number. They know you're back. The air outside felt heavier than it should have. Cold, sharp, and alert. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, letting the restaurant doors close behind me like the end of a chapter that was never supposed to reopen. My phone vibrated again. Unknown number. They know you're back. I didn't reply. Fear feeds on acknowledgement. Instead, I walked. 2 blocks. Well lit. Crowded. Patterns matter. A black sedan idled at the corner. New. Too clean. I passed it without looking. Another vibration. You should have stayed gone. I smiled faintly. Threats always arrive late. I turned into a cafe, ordered coffee I wouldn't drink, and took the seat facing the entrance. Reflections in glass never lie. The sedan passed once. Didn't stop. Good. My sister called. I let it ring. Then again. I answered on the third. Where are you? Her voice cracked before she finished the sentence. Safe. You can't just leave like that, she said. Do you have any idea what you did? Yes. Silence. Dad hasn't said a word since. She whispered. Mark's losing his mind. He keeps asking questions. That's new, I said quietly. Stop, she snapped. This isn't a game. I stirred my coffee slowly. Neither was the trial. She inhaled sharply. So it's true. I didn't answer. She exhaled shakily. He never told me. No, I said. He buried it. He's my father. And I was evidence. Her voice dropped. What did he do? The cafe felt suddenly too quiet. I lowered my voice. He signed off on something he shouldn't have. A plea that erased the wrong man and protected the right one. She whispered, protected who? Someone with money, I said, and reach. She was crying now. I could hear it. Why us? She asked. Because you wanted power, I replied gently. And power has a price. She hung up. Good. Emotions make people sloppy. My phone buzzed again. A different number. You forced my hand. I closed my eyes. Judge Reynolds. I typed back. You forced mine years ago. The reply came instantly. Meet me, tonight. I stared at the message. This was the part where most people ran. I wasn't most people. Location, I typed. A pause. Then an address. Federal Building Annex. Bold. Desperate. I paid for the coffee and stepped back into the night. The annex was half-lit, security minimal at this hour. He was already waiting inside, standing near a row of old case files like ghosts trapped in steel. You shouldn't have contacted me, he said. You shouldn't have recognized me, I replied. He looked older up close. The cracks were showing. You don't understand the forces involved, he said. That case kept people safe. It killed someone innocent, I said. He looked away. Sacrifices were made. I stepped closer. You made them, others paid. His jaw tightened. What do you want? The truth, I said. Public. He laughed bitterly. You think the system wants that? I think the system owes it, I replied. You'll destroy my family, he warned. You already did, I said. Silence. Then he said quietly, they won't let you live if you push this. I met his eyes. They already tried. That shook him. You have proof, he asked. I smiled. I was the proof, I said. And now I have records. His face drained of color. This ends badly, he whispered. It already did, I replied. As I turned to leave, he spoke again. They're watching you. I didn't turn back. I know, I said. That's the point. Outside, my phone buzzed one last time. A name this time. Mark. I answered. My father lied, he said. Didn't he? Yes. I can help, he said quickly. But you have to trust me. I closed my eyes. Trust was the most dangerous word in my vocabulary. Meet me tomorrow, I said. Come alone. He agreed. I hung up, and for the first time since the trial years ago, I felt it again. The pull, the inevitability, the moment when truth stops waiting and starts hunting. The system was waking up. I need you to listen to me, I said. Do exactly what I say. I'm scared, she said. So was I replied. And I survived. Mark stared at me. What happens now? He asked. I looked at the city, at the cameras, at the quiet panic spreading beneath the surface. Now, I said, they try to erase me again. And if they can't, he asked. I met his eyes. Then they burn. The call ended, but the sound of my sister crying stayed with me. Mark didn't speak as we walked. He didn't need to. His face had lost whatever certainty it once had. When belief collapses, silence rushes in to replace it. I changed direction twice. He noticed the second time. You're checking for tails, he said. I'm confirming them, I replied. We crossed the street as the light turned yellow. A gray SUV slowed too much for traffic. That one, he asked. Yes. Should we run? I shook my head. That's what they expect. We entered a hotel lobby instead. Not expensive, not cheap, busy enough to disappear, quiet enough to hear danger coming. I stopped near the elevators. Give me your phone, I said. What? Mark frowned. Now. He hesitated. Too long. My eyes hardened. If you're playing both sides, this ends badly for you. He handed it over. I turned it off, removed the battery. His breath caught. You think I'd sell you out? I think fear makes people creative, I said. The elevator dinged. We stepped inside. The doors closed. For half a second, the mirror showed us clearly. Two people connected by a crime neither of us committed, but both would pay for. Why didn't you run years ago? Mark asked quietly. I did, I replied. They followed. The elevator stopped on the 5th floor. No one entered. Good. We stepped out into the hallway. That's when the fire alarm screamed. Too loud. Too sudden. Sprinklers didn't activate. Fake. I grabbed Mark's arm and pulled him toward the stairwell. Footsteps echoed below us. Vast. Heavy. Not security. I shoved him ahead. Down, don't stop. Who are they? He gasped. People who don't want testimony, I said. A door slammed above us. They were closing in. I pushed through the exit at the 3rd floor and burst into the kitchen of a closed restaurant connected to the hotel. Steam, metal, noise. Perfect cover. Hide, I told Mark. I'm not leaving you, he said. I looked at him. Really looked. You already chose, I said. Now survive it. He ducked behind a freezer. I moved the opposite direction. The first man entered seconds later, not armed openly. Professionals rarely are. He scanned the room. Calm. I stepped into view. Looking for me? I asked. He smiled thinly. You make this difficult. I've had practice, I replied. He lunged. I slammed a tray into his face and ran. The second man appeared near the exit. I changed direction, slipped on purpose, rolled behind a counter as a shot shattered glass above my head. So they were armed. Good. That meant panic. I grabbed the fire extinguisher, yanked the pin, and flooded the room in white chaos. Coughing, shouting. I didn't wait. I bolted through the back door into the alley. Cold air, rain starting. I ran, didn't look back. I circled twice, doubled back once, and entered another building, through the service entrance. I was shaking now. Not fear. Adrenaline leaving. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. You escalated this. I typed back. You fired first. A reply came instantly. Next time we won't miss. I stopped walking, because that was the first honest thing they'd said. My sister called again. I answered. They questioned me, she said, breathless. About you, about the case. What did you say? I asked. I told them everything I knew. She said, which wasn't much. Good, I replied. Ignorance is protection. She cried softly. I didn't know he was capable of this. He was, I said, and so were they. She hesitated. They asked if I'd testify. My chest tightened. And, I asked. She inhaled sharply. I said yes. That changed everything. They won't stop now, I warned. I don't care, she said. I won't protect him anymore. I closed my eyes. A line had been crossed. Mark's phone buzzed in my pocket. I turned it on. One message. From his father. They're moving the evidence. Tonight. My pulse spiked. Where evidence moves, desperation follows. I typed back. Where? A pause. Then, if I tell you, they'll kill me. I stared at the screen. Finally, Judge Reynolds understood the cost of silence. I typed one last message. If you don't, they'll kill all of us. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Then the message arrived. An address. And a time. I looked up at the darkening sky. This ends now, I whispered. Because the next move wouldn't be about survival. It would be about exposure. The address led to a place designed to disappear things. A federal storage facility on the edge of the city. No sign, no public entrance. Concrete so clean it felt unreal. Cameras everywhere, not to protect what was inside, but to record who came close. I arrived early. Always arrive early. The rain had turned steady, soaking the ground, blurring reflections. I stayed in the car. Engine off, lights dark, watching patterns. 2 unmarked vans arrived first. Then a third. That was wrong. Evidence transfers didn't need redundancy, unless someone was afraid. My phone buzzed. Judge Reynolds. They accelerated the timeline. They know I talked. I typed back. Are you inside? A long pause. Then, yes, and they locked the doors. My grip tightened on the phone. Containment again. I scanned the lot. One of the van's doors opened. Men stepped out. No uniforms, no visible weapons. Calm, efficient. The kind of calm that comes from orders, not confidence. I exited the car. Walked, not rushed. If you move like prey, you become it. A voice cut through the rain. You're late. I turned. Mark stepped out from behind a concrete barrier. Alive. Unrestrained. That worried me more than if he'd been bleeding. You came alone, he said. You didn't, I replied. He swallowed. They made me call you. Did they? I asked. His eyes flicked toward the vans. They said they'd let my mother go. There it was. Everyone has a price. I need you to listen to me, I said quietly. If you hand me over, they won't keep that promise. You don't know that, he snapped. I do, I said. Because your father already paid it once. His jaw clenched. The building door behind him opened. Judge Reynolds was pushed out. Not dragged. That mattered. His hands weren't cuffed, but his posture was broken. A man who had run out of leverage. He saw me. His shoulders sagged. You shouldn't have come, he said. I said the same thing to you, I replied. One of the men stepped forward. Tall, scar near his ear. The one who gave orders without raising his voice. This is becoming inefficient, he said. We move the evidence, we remove the variables. His eyes settled on me. Starting with you. Mark stepped in front of me. My breath caught. She's not part of the deal, he said. The man smiled slightly. Everyone is part of the deal. Judge Reynolds spoke suddenly. The files are encrypted. The man's smile vanished. You said they weren't, he said. They weren't, the judge replied. Until tonight. That was new. I looked at him. He met my eyes. For the first time, there was no authority there. Just fear and resolve. They'll need me alive, he said. And they'll need her free. The man stared at him. Calculating. I stepped forward. You move those files, they leak. You don't have access, he said. I smiled. You'd be surprised who does when they're tired of burying the truth. Sirens wailed in the distance. Not close. Not far. Uncertain. The man cursed under his breath. He looked at Mark. Then at the judge. Then at me. You just turned this into a spectacle, he said. Good, I replied. You hate witnesses. He signaled with 2 fingers. One of the vans reversed. The other doors slammed shut. They were leaving. Not retreating. Regrouping. The man leaned close to me. You won't get a second chance. I met his gaze. Neither will you. They drove off. Rain swallowed the sound. Judge Reynolds collapsed against the wall. Mark caught him. I never meant for this, Mark said. None of us do, I replied. That's how it works. My phone rang. A protected number. I answered. They're moving your sister, a calm voice said. Witness protection. Immediately. Relief hit hard. Relief hit hard. Where? I asked. Somewhere you won't find her. The voice replied. And that's the point. The call ended. Judge Reynolds looked up at me. What happens now? I looked at the building. At the cameras. At the night that no longer belonged to secrets. Now, I said, this stops being quiet. A helicopter passed overhead. Too low. Too deliberate. Mark looked at me. Are you ready for what comes next? I thought of the courtroom. The sealed testimony. The lie that had lasted years. I've been ready since the first time they tried to erase me, I said. And in that moment, standing in the rain with the evidence still breathing, and the truth finally exposed to air. I knew the next move wouldn't be theirs. It would be mine. The leak didn't start with headlines. It started with silence breaking. At 6:12 a.m., my phone buzzed nonstop. Messages, missed calls, unknown numbers multiplying like insects drawn to light. I didn't answer. I watched instead. A single document went live first. Redacted, but not enough. By 6:20, it was mirrored. By 6:27, it had a name. By 6:30, it had teeth. Mark sat across from me in the hotel room, pale, staring at his laptop like it was a crime scene. "They're saying it was buried intentionally," he whispered. "It was," I replied. "They're saying your testimony was suppressed." "It was," I said again. He scrolled faster. "They're saying my father signed the override." I stayed quiet, because that part hurt him more than denial ever could. The knock on the door came at 6:41. Not rushed, measured. I opened it halfway. 2 federal agents. Real ones this time, badges visible, faces tight. "Miss Carter," one said, "you're coming with us." I didn't move. "Am I under arrest?" "No," he replied. "Yet." I smiled faintly. "Then you can wait." The agent stiffened. A voice from behind him cut in. "Let her finish packing." A woman stepped forward, mid-40s. Sharp eyes, no wasted movement. Internal affairs. She looked at me like she already knew the ending. "You triggered a cascade," she said calmly. "Do you know what that does to institutions?" "Yes," I replied. "It cleans them or breaks them." She nodded once. "Good, because we need you clean." Mark stood. "What about my father?" Her eyes flicked to him. "He's cooperating." The word landed hard. Mark sat back down slowly. The ride downtown was quiet. Sirens didn't scream. Lights didn't flash. This wasn't theater. This was surgery. Inside the building, hallways buzzed without noise. Phones vibrated. Doors closed softly. Names were whispered. I was placed in a room with glass walls. Visibility is protection. Judge Reynolds was brought in 10 minutes later. No cuffs, no robe. Just a man in a wrinkled suit who had lost control of the narrative. He didn't sit at first. He looked at me. "I should have listened years ago," he said. "Yes," I replied. "You should have." He swallowed. "They'll destroy everything I built." "You built it on a lie," I said. "It was already gone." He sat. Across from us, Internal Affairs began recording. "State your name," the woman said. He did. "State your role in the suppression of federal case 4180 7B." His hands trembled. He looked at me one last time, then spoke. Each word peeled something away. Names, dates, orders. Mark watched through the glass, breaking in slow motion. My phone buzzed again. One message. From my sister. "They changed my name. I don't know who I am anymore." I closed my eyes. Protection costs identity. I typed back. "You're alive. That's enough for now." The woman ended the recording. "Today won't end this," she said, "but it will start arrests." As if summoned, a shout echoed down the hall. Raised voices. Footsteps. A man was led past the glass, the scar near his ear. In cuffs. His eyes met mine. Hate burned there. Fear underneath. I held his gaze. Didn't blink. Mark turned away. He couldn't watch anymore. Judge Reynolds lowered his head. I thought I was untouchable. "No one is," I replied. "Some people just fall later." The building buzzed louder now. Media vans clustered outside. Cameras waiting for faces. Internal Affairs opened the door. "It's time." "For what?" Mark asked hoarsely. She looked at me. "For you to be seen." I stepped into the hallway. Lights flared through the glass doors. Questions shouted. Names thrown like weapons. I walked straight. Didn't smile. Didn't hide. Because the moment truth becomes visible, power starts bleeding in public. And somewhere behind me, an entire system realized it no longer controlled the story. The courtroom smelled like old wood and anticipation. Fans whirred softly overhead, but they couldn't drown out the tension. Every reporter, every camera, every whisper added weight to the air. I entered last. Eyes followed me. Not curiosity. Fear. Respect. Recognition. Judge Reynolds was seated where he usually ruled. Not as a god, but as a man under the microscope, stripped bare by truth. Mark followed quietly, avoiding my gaze. He knew what this meant. Loyalty tested. Trust shattered. He wasn't ready to face his father fully, but he had no choice. The bailiff called the court to order. Silence settled over the room like a fog. The judge of the court, overseeing the reopening of the sealed case, adjusted his glasses. "This hearing will address federal case 4187B, previously suppressed. Those involved are required to testify fully. A smirk threatened to cross my face, but I contained it. Control is silent. Power is patience. Judge Reynolds cleared his throat. "You're here to testify?" he asked, almost whispering, like asking permission. "Yes," I said. The words struck like a bell. No hesitation, no fear, just truth. My sister's voice trembled as she spoke from the witness box. I know things now," she began. "Things I didn't know before. I was wrong." Her eyes met mine briefly. Fear, shame, and relief tangled in that one look. Mark's hands tightened around the railing in front of him. He knew he'd have to answer questions he never wanted to ask. Questions that could destroy his father and fracture his own life. The prosecutor spoke next, calm but firm. "Judge Reynolds, were you aware that the suppression of Case 4180, 7B protected certain individuals from justice?" The courtroom's attention was laser-focused. He faltered, just a slight pause, but it screamed volumes. "Yes," he said finally. The word hung heavy in the air. I watched him crumble quietly, dignity stripped, years of untouchable authority erased in minutes. Mark stepped forward. His voice was steady. I knew my father made the decision, but I didn't understand the implications until now." Shock swept across the room. Even the press could feel it. The prodigal son was testifying against his own father. The judge of the court raised an eyebrow. "Are you implying complicity?" Mark swallowed. I didn't participate directly, but I stood by. Ignorant, I see that now, and I can't deny it." Judge Reynolds looked at him sharply, then at me. "You set this in motion," he said quietly. "Yes," I replied. "No one else could," I added. A hush fell. Every word I said tightened the noose. The prosecution pulled out sealed evidence, documents, emails, and recordings. My heart raced as the first tape played. It was my sister, recorded under duress years ago, admitting knowledge of the suppression. Her voice shook then, but now, strengthened by courage, it rang clear. Judge Reynolds flinched. He tried to look away, but the room demanded he face the consequences. The gallery whispered. Reporters jotted notes furiously. Mark's face paled as he realized the depth of his father's betrayal. The prosecutor turned to me. "Do you have additional testimony?" I leaned forward. "Everything is recorded, documented, undeniable, and it's all public now. No one can bury it." The judge's hands tightened on the podium. This wasn't just a court hearing. It was the final reckoning. I looked at my sister, who held my gaze. "I was wrong," she mouthed. "You were right," I replied silently. Mark's jaw tightened. He would have to live with what he had done, or failed to do, for the rest of his life. Judge Reynolds exhaled, visibly defeated. Years of control, stripped away in a courtroom that would not forget. Outside, the cameras flashed. The story would be on every screen by morning. The judge was no longer untouchable. The system, once manipulated, now had witnesses. And I had won the first battle without firing a shot. The courtroom victory lasted less than an hour. Truth doesn't settle quietly when it threatens power. By the time I reached the secured exit, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Messages from journalists, missed calls from blocked numbers, warnings disguised as advice. Mark walked beside me, silent again. Too silent. "You don't have to stay," I told him. "I already crossed the line," he replied. "There's no safe side anymore." Outside, cameras surged forward like a tide. "Did you plan this? Was this revenge? Are more judges involved?" I didn't answer, because answers feed headlines, not justice. Internal affairs pushed us through a side entrance and into a black SUV. As the door slammed shut, my phone buzzed with a secure alert. Threat level elevated. Immediate relocation advised. I exhaled slowly. The system finally agreed with my instincts. The SUV hadn't gone 3 blocks when the driver stiffened. "Change of route," he muttered. Mark looked up. "Why?" The driver didn't answer. He accelerated. "Too hard." I leaned forward. "Who authorized this?" No response. That was my answer. "Mark," I said calmly, "brace." The impact came from the side. Metal screamed. Glass exploded. The SUV spun and slammed into a light pole. Airbags deployed. Shouting. Sirens. Chaos. I kicked the door open before the smoke settled. 2 men were already approaching. Not police. Not federal. Private. Mark stumbled out behind me, bleeding from his forehead. "Run," I shouted. He hesitated. A mistake. A gunshot cracked the air. The bullet hit pavement, inches from his foot. I grabbed his collar and dragged him behind the wreck. "You don't get to freeze," I snapped. Not now. The men advanced methodically. Hunters, not killers. They wanted us alive. That was worse. Police sirens wailed closer. The men exchanged a look. One of them raised his phone, spoke briefly, then nodded. They backed away, melted into traffic. Too clean, too organized. Mark slid down against the wreck, shaking. They tried to kill us, he said. No, I replied. They tried to remind us who's still angry. My phone rang. A secure line. Your sister has been moved, a voice said. Emergency relocation. Why? I demanded. Because someone leaked her new identity. My stomach dropped. That was sealed, I said. So was the case, the voice replied. The call ended. Mark stared at me. This is my fault. Yes, I said honestly. And mine and his. I helped him to his feet as police surrounded the scene. Flashlights, questions, controlled panic. By nightfall, the footage was everywhere. Witness attacked after explosive testimony. The narrative shifted. This wasn't scandal anymore. It was war. In a secure location hours later. Internal Affairs laid it out plainly. There's a faction still operating. The woman said. People your testimony threatens. How many? I asked. Enough, she replied. And they're not done. Mark sat with his head in his hands. I can testify again, he said. Publicly, on record. She looked at him sharply. That would paint a bigger target. He lifted his head. Good. I studied him. Pain had changed him. Fear had sharpened him. Why? I asked. Because if I stay silent now, he said, I become him. The room went quiet. The woman nodded slowly. We'll schedule it. As she left, my phone buzzed one last time. Unknown number. You won the courtroom. You won't win the streets. I typed back. I don't need to. I just need you visible. 3 dots appeared, then vanished. No reply. Outside the window, city lights flickered. Somewhere in that darkness, people were scrambling, deleting files, making calls they should have made years ago. They were scared, and fear makes powerful people reckless, which meant one thing. The end was getting close. The morning was unusually quiet. Too quiet. It always is before a storm. Mark and I were in a safe house. Empty walls, sparse furniture, a single lamp casting long shadows. Every noise outside felt amplified. I checked the secure line. Nothing. Too long. That was the first red flag. Mark paced. They're planning something. He muttered. I can feel it. I know, I said. That's why we move first. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Evidence moving. Tonight. Location unsecure. I exhaled slowly. They're desperate. Mark frowned. If they're desperate, what's the trap? I smiled faintly. The trap is us showing up alive. We left minutes later. No vehicles followed. No shadows. No sounds. Too perfect. The building was deserted. A warehouse on the outskirts. Red lights flashed faintly inside. Metal doors, echoing floors. We entered cautiously. Every step deliberate. Every sense on edge. Inside, the evidence was there. Boxes stacked neatly. Files meticulously organized. A single desk lamp, illuminating one folder. I reached for it. Hands steady. Then a shadow moved. Judge Reynolds. Not restrained, not calm. Eyes wide. Rage and panic tangled in a mess I'd rarely seen. You shouldn't be here, he said. I told you, I replied calmly. You lost control years ago. Mark stepped forward. Dad. He ignored him. Focus remained on me. They tried to erase you, he said. And now, his hands shook. You're exposing everything. Yes, I said, everything. The sound of footsteps echoed behind us. Too many. Too fast. The men who tried to kill us before emerged from the shadows. Calm, precise professionals. Judge Reynolds faltered for the first time. He was used to commanding obedience. Now he realized some power had slipped permanently. One of the men stepped forward, gun in hand. Step aside, he commanded. I didn't move. Mark froze. Now, the man barked. I smiled faintly. I don't think you understand. The judge's eyes widened. She survived before. You can't. Watch me, I said. I grabbed a metal rod from the floor, swung it, disarming the nearest man. Mark acted instinctively, helping me take control. Within seconds, the men were subdued on the floor, restrained. Judge Reynolds looked at me pale. This isn't possible. It is, I replied. Because truth and preparation are stronger than fear and secrecy. He sank onto a chair. You'll destroy everything I built. I already have, I said, and I don't need to. You did that to yourself years ago. Mark stepped closer. Dad, it's over. You need to cooperate, publicly, now. Judge Reynolds looked at him. For the first time, I saw defeat in his eyes. Not shame, not anger, pure, raw realization. The secure line buzzed again. Internal affairs. All hostile parties neutralized. Prepare for media presence. Witness protection secured. Mark turned to me. We did it. I shook my head. Not yet. The world needs to see it. He glanced at his father. This is final. Yes, I said, and it's irreversible. The cameras rolled as internal affairs moved in. Judge Reynolds was led away, compliant. The files were secured. The world would know. Mark looked at me, conflicted. You saved us all. I smiled faintly. Saved, maybe. Exposed the truth, definitely. Outside, the storm that had been gathering years ago finally broke. And no one, not even the most powerful judge in the country, could stop the flood. The headlines hit before sunrise. Every major network, every news website. The story spread like wildfire. Federal judge exposed. Case suppression revealed after witness returns. Mark and I watched from the secure location. Silence this time, but heavy. Every word online a hammer, striking what remained of his father's reputation. Mark's face was pale. People, they're going to see everything. Yes, I said, and they'll understand why it couldn't stay hidden. Judge Reynolds was already in custody. Internal affairs had moved fast. Media circled. The man who once controlled entire legal corridors now controlled nothing. Mark ran a hand through his hair. I don't know if I can face them. You don't have to, I said. You did your part where it mattered. A call came through a secure line. My sister. Her voice was calm, different, stronger. They changed my identity, but I'm okay now, she said. I'm safe. I smiled. Relief finally reached me. Good, that's all that matters. She hesitated. I want to come back. I want to help with the exposure officially. I nodded. Then we do it together the right way. Mark leaned back. And Dad, what now? Public hearings, I said. Full disclosure. Accountability. No shortcuts. The irony wasn't lost on Judge Reynolds. He had tried to bury everything. But now, he had to testify against himself. Mark swallowed. And the men who attacked us. Neutralized, I said. They won't be able to touch anyone else. Outside, helicopters hovered. Media vans blared loudspeakers. The storm of truth was complete. Nothing left to hide. My sister joined us a few days later, still under partial protection. She looked different, stronger, determined. No longer the scared girl, swept up in family lies. Mark finally smiled a little. You saved me too. No, I said softly. We saved each other. But the world saw who really controlled the story. Judge Reynolds' public hearing was brutal. Every suppressed case, every override, every illegal move, exposed. The courtroom didn't just see him. The country saw him. Mark testified fully, as he promised. He faced the man who had been his father, and chose loyalty to truth over family legacy. And my sister's recorded testimony, once hidden, became the key piece. Powerless to manipulate, impossible to suppress. By the end of the week, everything had changed. Some lives were broken. Some truths healed wounds that years of lies couldn't. Mark looked at me, finally steady. This is over. For us, I said. For the rest, the truth will do its work. And somewhere, far above, the storm cleared. The sun broke through clouds. And I knew, after years of running, hiding, surviving, the balance had finally shifted. We walked away together. No vengeance. No celebration. Just truth. Finally seen. Finally unbreakable. The courtroom was silent. Every seat filled. Cameras off, but eyes on us all. The moment had arrived. Judge Reynolds sat alone, face pale, shoulders slumped. He had seen the media storm, the public outrage, the testimony. And now, he had to face the consequences fully. I walked in, calm, measured. Mark and my sister flanked me. We weren't just witnesses. We were the reckoning. The prosecution laid out every suppressed file, every override, every manipulated case. The evidence was undeniable. The room absorbed it like a tidal wave. Mark stepped forward. He spoke slowly, deliberately, not as a son defending a father, but as a man who chose truth over legacy. I will not excuse what my father did, he said. Every eye turned. Every journalist scribbled. Every heart in the room recognized the courage. Judge Reynolds flinched, but remained seated. You're disowning me, he whispered. I'm acknowledging truth, Mark replied. Silence, heavier than words. My sister's voice trembled as she gave her testimony. Years ago, I didn't understand. She said, I was scared, but now I know. And I cannot protect lies anymore. The judge's face paled. No defiance, no denial, just raw, crushing reality. I took a deep breath. Every action has consequences, I said. And this is the consequence of hiding the truth. The judge looked at me, fear mingling with something else, recognition. Recognition that for once, the person he underestimated was in full control. Then the final twist came. A messenger from Internal Affairs handed me a sealed envelope. I opened it slowly. Inside, evidence showing that Judge Reynolds had tried to frame not just us, but several federal officials who were now untouchable. I held it up. All hidden networks exposed, I said. The courtroom murmured, shock on every face. The man who thought he was untouchable was cornered on every side. Mark's hand brushed mine. Did we finish it? He asked. Almost, I replied. The storm isn't over until the last lie is gone. The judge was led away in handcuffs. Not quietly, not shamefully, but visibly broken. The press outside captured every second. The story wouldn't fade. It would haunt him forever. My sister was relocated again, this time safely, her new identity secured. She turned back once, eyes meeting mine. No fear, only strength. Mark and I left the courtroom together. No words necessary. We had survived the nightmare, exposed the truth, and changed everything. And as we stepped into the sunlight outside, I realized the past could no longer touch us. The lies could no longer bind us. We were free finally, completely, irreversibly. The storm of deception had ended, and the people who believed themselves untouchable had learned the hardest lesson. Truth has a memory longer than power.